Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala wa ba'd. Indeed, from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon the people of Sunnah and Hadith in every time is the fact that their methodology is based upon principles extrapolated from the Book of Allah, from the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from the consensus of the Sahaba. Ahlul Sunnah know that opposing this consensus constitutes opposition of the methodology of this ummah known as the manhaj. Evidence in any issue with them returns back to that which is indicated by these sources, and opposition of the methodology revolves around opposition of this. Some seem to consider that the book and the sunnah are the only evidences in our deen, and neglect the evidence of the consensus of the salaf of this ummah and their principles. Is this not what makes us Salafi? Our duty then is to learn what the Salaf were upon and to cling to it, and to know that the principles of our methodology stem from this. This is Salafiyah. He who opposes these well-known fundamentals and learns of his own error must correct his error, or Ahl Sunnah will correct it for him. If the mistake was made in private, then the correction is done in private, and if the mistake was public, i.e. a lecture or an article, then his correction must likewise be public in accordance with giving advice to the Muslims in general. One of the problems that we face in this time is the distance that many of the people have from these fundamentals. Either they ignore them after knowing them, or they're ignorant of their application, or they're ignorant of them in totality. And our Sheikh Rabi ibn Hadi, he used to say often that the problem with many people is that they are detached from the books of the Salaf. If they were connected, then they would be clear about the positions of the Salaf that they claim to ascribe to and follow. What I intend then with this simple series is to highlight some of the principles of the Salaf and the manner in which some of those who have weak implementation of these principles, known as the Mumayya, oppose these principles or create principles of their own and attempt to attribute them to the methodology. But certainly, from the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jalla upon this ummah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes for this ummah individuals who defend these principles and detect when they're being opposed, regardless of how cunningly the proponents of this deviation defend and spread their misguidance. This methodology is inherited from those who possess it, that is, the people of knowledge, and it is not based upon guesswork or conjecture or coming to our own conclusions, nor acting upon what we deem to be obvious, quote unquote. Neither should it be presumed that everyone referred to as an alim must by necessity be knowledgeable concerning this, such that if one took from the scholars, then they must too be knowledgeable and aware of it. And this was something that was very well known in the past. Al-Imam ibn Wahab, rahimahullah ta'ala, who died in the year 197 after Hijrah, he said, I met 360 scholars, but had it not been for Malik ibn Anas and Layth ibn Sa'ad, then I would have gone astray in regards to the affair of knowledge. Al-Imam Abu Thawr, who died in the year 240 after Hijrah, he said, Ishaq ibn Rahoy, Hussein al-Karabisi and I did not leave our innovation until we met Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, even though Al-Imam Ahmad, he later spoke against Hussein al-Karabisi. But these three individuals, they were encouraged to leave their bid'ah, and they understood the error that they were upon when they met Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. Al-Imam al-Humaydi, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who died in the year 219, he said, we used to wish to refute the people of philosophical rhetoric, but we were not proficient at doing so, until Al-Imam al-Shafi'i came to us, and thus he opened it up for us. Similarly, Al-Imam Amr ibn al-Abbas al-Bahili, he said, Abdullah ibn Dawood al-Kharibi said to Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, are you Qadari? And he replied, my teachers were Hamad ibn Zayd and Yazid ibn Zurayya, and which of the two of them would have took the bid'ah of Qadr from? The seeking knowledge does not necessitate that a person will gain detailed knowledge of the methodology of the Salaf, just as being from the people of knowledge does not, by default, necessitate that this scholar is skilled in the field of the intricacies of the methodology, since being knowledgeable concerning good does not automatically necessitate detailed knowledge of evil. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu mentioned that the people used to ask about the good, but I used to ask about the evil, fearing that it would befall me. Therefore, Hudayfa would have had knowledge of evil that would not have been possessed by some others. Al-Imam ibn Abi Hatim, he mentions with his chain of narration going back to Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, who said that the people, the scholars, are of types. He mentions, from them is he who was an imam in the sunnah, that is, the knowledge of the methodology, and an imam in hadith, the knowledge of hadith, its scientists and its men. From them is he who is an imam in the sunnah but not an imam in hadith. And from them is he who was an imam in hadith and not an imam in the sunnah. As for he who is an imam in the sunnah and an imam in hadith, then it is the likes of Sufyan al-Thawri. Imam Malik has likewise been referred to as an imam in both fields, while Imam al-Awza'i has been referred to as an imam in the sunnah, not an imam in hadith. So these great narrations indicate to us, and this narration in particular, a number of benefits. Number one, the fact that the Salaf had a usage for the term sunnah other than the general meaning of hadith. Number two, the fact that not all scholars are the same in terms of knowledge of the methodology and the manhaj. Number three, the fact that knowledge of hadith does not necessitate knowledge of the methodology, even if he is an imam. Number four, if that is the case with the imams of the past, then it goes without saying that it is applied to scholars of our time. Number five, if that was the case with the imams of the past, then it goes without saying that this is applicable likewise to the students of knowledge of our time. By necessity, that is, strength or weakness in the knowledge of the methodology. Number six, that we should not understand from this that ar-rad al-mukhalif, that is, refutation of the one who opposes the principles of the religion, does not fall under the hadith science of jarh wa ta'deel, disparaging or praising the narrators of hadith. The people of innovation are the first of the people who this science is applied upon. This, no doubt, is established and is clear. The doubts then that we will discuss in this series are doubts that are raised by those who have little true knowledge of the methodology of the Salaf. Hence, they oppose the manhaj in various ways and then request quote-unquote evidence that their opposition is incorrect. Opposition is opposition. The only thing that must be known is that such and such a person actually said or wrote the statement. If it is sufficient, if his statement is established, then it is sufficient as an evidence of the error. That is not to say that we make tabdi' or we declare him an innovator. No, but the error is established. Then we will see thereafter either he repents, either he corrects his error and makes tawbah, or he persists upon his error. And that is a different affair. So it is sufficient then as evidence of his error for us to know that he has opposed agreed upon principles of our Salaf. But unfortunately, he who is ignorant of them is ignorant of them, while he who is acquainted with these principles only needs to hear of the opposition to know that the individual has strayed from the path of the Salaf. Either he makes tawbah and rectifies himself, or he persists upon his error without change. These doubts are not new, but regurgitated doubts reoccurring from time to time. In our era, there are a number of individuals who are attributed to knowledge, who have promoted these doubts in our communities over the years in the guise of quote-unquote principles. At the head of them, the likes of Ali Hassan al-Halabi and the likes of Abu al-Hasan al-Ma'ribi al-Misri, among others. To the extent that the one who is ignorant of the realities of the true manhaj of the Salaf opposes it, vehemently despises it, believes the aforementioned principles to be true Salafiyah. And to oppose these principles of theirs is to oppose true Salafiyah, and is quote-unquote destroying our communities. While the truth of the matter is, these principles are destroying our communities, splitting our ranks, creating small pockets of individuals who feel disenfranchised or gather themselves into fringe groups, displeased with the Salafi state of affairs. And this is where the problem lies, not with the manhaj or the true methodology of the Salaf of this ummah. Disgruntled individuals who are displeased with the reality of the true methodology and so begin to fringe themselves or to split off into fringe groups. So when people gather around this falsehood, we see our divisions in our ranks increasing. Thus, we will mention in as simple a manner as possible these doubts and the responses of the people of knowledge to them, and at the head of those scholars, the responses of the vanguard of the methodology in our era, our Shaykh al-Allama, Shaykh Rabi ibn Hadi al-Madkhali, may Allah preserve him, since in reality their issue is in actuality with these scholars. They are the real targets. They are the ones who their real grievance is with. They are the real problem as far as they are concerned. Attention must be turned away from them. The students in the West are nothing but an intermediary annoyance. May Allah preserve us and our scholars and the people of Sunnah in every land. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabina Muhammad.